Hi, good morning and welcome everyone. This is Seek Sustainable Japan. And a sub-series, we are doing short takes, 30 minutes, what's happening in Japan with sustainability. I'm JJWalsh here in Hiroshima, joined by...
Hi, I'm Tove Joy here in Yokohama.
Now, Tove, we have some very exciting news. Our lovely Tove has been featured by the Sustainable Japan Times. Congratulations, Tove. It's great to see you in there.
Thank you.
Very, very good article, all about your backstory. Now, things I didn't know. I meet you
Yeah.
once a month to talk through things. I didn't realize you spent half your childhood in Scotland and connecting to nature, and that was a great part of your formative years, right?
Yeah. Well, very much. I mean, my whole life, basically, my whole childhood, I was in very, very rural areas, first in southwest England and then in northeast Scotland, but always just, I think the nearest I ever lived to any kind of civilization was about 10 miles. So, was surrounded by fields, animals, and things. So, yeah, that was my start in life, and hence the reason that natural environment has always been very, very important to me and very much part of my life. So,
And great photos, wonderful interview. I love it. It's fantastic. And you had a chance to also talk about how you came as a teacher, like many of us who end up in term in Japan, and then transitioned to founding your own two businesses, Enteleco and Global Perspectives. But also about developing the sustainable brand mindset. A lot of the things you do, talking about structural change, not just for the people with sustainability in their job title,
no.
but it's a wider scope. Can you
Yes.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, our sort of fundamental belief, I guess, at particularly at Enteleco with the sustainability work we do, is that sustainability is actually everyone's job. So whether or not it says it in your job title, it's part of your responsibility as a human being. Everything we do has an impact on people and planet. So the work we do with Enteleco is to help people kind of connect those dots, right, between what it is they're doing in the company, their work, how that connects into what the company's trying to do on sustainability, and then how that then sort of connects into impact on people and or planet. And it's interesting because I think you can very often at the start we get this sort of skepticism of like, okay, well, I'm not in the sustainability team. It's not in my job description or KPIs. Why should I care? Actually, I'm just trying to hit my targets and keep my boss happy and keep my job and all of this. But then when you start looking at it and helping people realize that actually, when you're, say, designing a product and you're thinking about what materials to use or how you design it for sort of end of life recycling or this, that, and the other, you have agency, you have the power actually to really make to choose the impact that you want to have here. And when you can start to reframe it like that, then it's an opportunity to have a more positive impact rather than being an obligation pushed down from on top where, the top of the company says, now you have to think this way or do this kind of thing. And people tend to push back against top-down stuff, right? And not feel the emotional engagement to it. And it's an obligation and perhaps a bit of resentment there. But actually, when you reframe it as you've got an opportunity here to rethink, or help your company make a more positive impact through the decisions you make in your little part of that, then you can kind of see people's mindset shift around it. And the motivation then comes from inside rather than the company trying to force that motivation, which generally doesn't work. If it can come from inside people themselves, then it's a very, very much, it's much more powerful motivator then.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I've been training guides for new sustainable tours that we're developing on Miyajima, for example. And these are already travel guides. They're trained professionally, they have experience, but getting them to kind of shift their mindset about you are the good example.
Yes.
Carry your own chopsticks. carry your own water bottle.
Exactly.
Use your own shopping bag or furoshiki. Like these are small changes that you might not be doing it as a normal guide, but these things matter when your tour is called a sustainable tour. You've got to bring it as the guide.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
you can't force the customer to do that, but by showing it, by offering places to refill, for example, you can make a difference. And they would expect it. Most visitors would expect it.
Yes.
When you're training people how to change their mindset, have you found any things like, oh, the staff are having trouble doing that because there's nowhere to refill in the staff room, or there's where to reheat their bento boxes if they're bringing their own, right?
Yeah.
You must find parts of the system that could change while you're training the staff, right?
Exactly. So it's got to be a collaborative effort, right? So you've got to, yes, sort of get the people on board and think about the behavioral changes and the behavioral nudges that you can make rather than trying to change everything at once, sort of bit by bit, how you can make it easier for people in their working environment to make better choices. But you've also, that needs to be supported, right, by the company in terms of providing the infrastructure they need. And actually yesterday, great example of that, I was in share office in Roppongi with the so-called work styling. I think it's Mitsui Fudosan's share office there. And so there's a coffee machine and always has been in the years I've been going there. But I noticed yesterday, the coffee machine, instead of having the paper cups now beside it, has reusable cups. And then they've got a big box beside that explains, when you finished, put your reusable cup in here. And they're keeping track of how many disposable cups they're saving through this system. So I thought that was it's so simple, and it's right there by the coffee machine. So you'd go there to get your coffee anywhere. So you just go there and you can pop your cup back in the recycling box to be washed and used again. And the fact that it's explained, so the process is completely clear, there are no excuses, it's really easy. So that behavioral nudge of people don't even have to go to a different place in the office, it's right there. I was really, very happy to see that there. And it's such a simple step companies can take, or these share offices can take. It's like, yes, let's.
And then once the opportunity is there, like whenever you go to Starbucks, they have mugs there.
Yeah.
Why not, when you say you're going to have it there, why don't they say, how about a mug? Or just do it by default? Like, why is default the disposable one?
Yeah.
Right? Like changing that part of their operations. That's really helped, because people would be happy to drink from a mug that can be washed and reused, right?
Exactly. And I think there are some that do it, like Dotor coffee chain, for example. The default, if you're ordering to have it in the shop, the default is the mug cup, as they call it, the ceramic cup, right? And the same, one or two others, I think. But yesterday I went to Tully's, ordered 2 drinks, one for myself, one for my colleague. And when they went to give me the drink, the first one was just a very quick order. They just gave me right away. Was in a paper cup, and I said, "But we're drinking it here. Why the paper cup?" "Oh, you didn't ask." And I said, "Well, you asked me if I'm, having it here," and I said yes. So I had assumed she would put it in a paper cup, and they said, "Oh, I can go and tip it out now and put it into a thing." And I was like,
"No,
that's not the point."
Yes, the point is gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was, I had to say I was probably the stroppy foreigner and probably today, but I was like, look, no, that's not the point. The point is, if you do that, you're creating waste. You're also, she was like, "Oh no, I'll make the coffee again from scratch." I was like, "Well, then you're wasting the coffee as well." So this is really not working. I was like, "Okay, my other drink, if you haven't made it yet, please could I have that?"
And that's another example why what you're doing, talking about mindset change, talking about system change, changes in the operation training, the operation strategy is so key. I remember years ago when 7-Eleven started selling coffee, and I would go and bring my own cup, and for a while it was okay. And then after that, the staff would bring up the paper cup and be like, "Okay, you're using your own cup," and throw it in the trash, like a brand new, not used paper cup. And they said, "We have to do that because we have to count the number of cups or something." And I was like, okay, this is crazy.
That's absolute madness.
Something about the training that needed to change, right?
Yeah, the training, but also like rethinking the processes. There must be other ways to count, right? You don't have to count
Absolutely. I was
physical
like,
paper cuts.
Lawson seems to be able to do it, or Family Mart. Like, let's think about this, guys. Like,
Yeah,
that's costing them money too, right? So
exactly.
it's also a
Mm.
cost, actual
Yeah.
income,
Mm,
deficit.
mm.
Anyway, yeah, craziness. But I'm so glad for what you're doing. You're doing such great work. Another thing in the article they talked about is your work with Refugee Empowerment International. You just
Yes.
introduced that quickly again.
REI. So yeah, Refugee Empowerment International. So it's a Japan-based NPO that raises funds here. So most of the people are here, although there are some now in sort of other countries as well. But the idea is that raising funds to support projects that are by refugees for refugees. So I've been working with them now, I think 7 or 8 years. I was trying to work it out. And the thing that really sort of attracted me in the first place is they work with a lot of the forgotten communities that we don't see and hear about in the news anymore because the world has moved on since that first sort of came up, and most people have forgotten that these people are still living in refugee camps. They're still facing enormous challenges. And so at the moment, REI is supporting 4 projects, 2 on the Thai-Myanmar border, 1 in Lebanon, and 1 in Nairobi. And they're really amazing projects because they really take into consideration the real needs of the people on the ground. It's not sort of coming in and saying, well, we think you need this. It's looking and asking, saying, okay, what do you need from us? How can we support you on that? And we're very careful. They're vetted very carefully. They have to provide a very sort of clear proposal on exactly how the money will be used and be very transparent, and then show how it's been used sort of year on year. But the projects in that way have, because people are empowered. I mean, it's in the name, right? So they're not reliant on others. If you can give them sort of basic funding and what they need, then they can do the work that's needed to lift themselves up. And very often they'll sort of create perhaps initiatives or businesses where they're then supporting, giving back to the local economy. They're supporting other refugees and other people in the area, and then that's a really positive cycle, right? So we see amazing impact in the projects that they're doing, and it's a
And then
wonderful.
in the article as well, talking about
Mm.
developing starter packs,
Yes.
training to get people to start their own businesses,
Yeah,
get their own money. So
exactly.
not just rely on handouts, not just
No,
rely on donations, but
no.
get people educated and trained so
Yeah.
they can support themselves.
Exactly. And then it's sustainable, right? Handouts are not sustainable because you've got to keep finding new sources of money, and people get, those sources can run out. But if you can give people what they need to get back on their feet and then start generating their own income, then, then great, off they go. And often they just need that. We sort of call it a hand up rather than a handout. So you just give them a hand up to help them sort of step up out of the situation that they're stuck in, and then they know what to do with that.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
That's great. Well, congratulations again.
thank
It's great
you.
to see you there. Thank you, Japan Times, for featuring
Yes,
such
thank you.
amazing people like Tova. A little announcement. Thank you so much, everybody. We have now passed 4,500 subscribers on YouTube. Yay!
Fantastic, congratulations.
Going. Yeah, thank you. And tomorrow, the talk is with Dr. Donna Weeks. She's now based in Brisbane, Australia. But she is an expert on Japanese elections. She's a political scientist. She's studied a lot about the leaders who are now back in power. She had
Mm,
picked Ishiba out of the lineup when we were talking elections last time. So she's going to give us a little bit of insight about what kind of leader he is,
mm.
what the background on him is. I think a lot of us don't really know,
No,
right? Living in
not at
Japan, I
all.
mean, we don't vote, but
Mm,
it's really important to know what your leaders are like and
yeah.
what their aims are. And he seems like a really different kind of leader than the last.
Mm.
Plus, the government has shuffled a little bit, so Donna's going to give us some important insights there.
That will be really interesting to hear, actually, because, like you say, I mean, I know really nothing about him, so I'm very curious to see where he sort of stands on really important issues. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. Anybody, long-term residents,
Mm,
especially and people doing business and work here, it's important.
absolutely. Yeah.
And unfortunately, very connected to the American election and the changes which are happening there, which affect us all. Now, now we will talk more. Hopefully, at the beginning of December next month,
Yes.
we're going to talk more about sustainable shops and products that keep your eye on for the Christmas and the holidays when you're buying for other people. But here are a few ones. Now, Time Out Tokyo did a great article last year featuring some of these, and I have one of these
I've
homemade
seen them.
bags,
Yeah.
and I love that. It
Mm.
comes from an old sign on a highway. Let me see if I can pick it up. And this is where I found mine,
That's
and I use it
fantastic.
all the time. And a lot of local people say, "Why do you have a bag that says night?" And then it's a great chance to talk about. Well, this was an old highway sign, and
Yeah.
it's
No,
nice
I love it.
and it's waterproof. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Other shout out to Mikan Bags, the talented
Mm.
Clementine. She's a French designer living in Kyoto, and she's upcycling so much beautiful vintage material and making beautiful products. So extending the life of this beautiful material. Another great one is she's also
Oh, wow.
reselling antiques.
Hmm.
So a lot of the houses in Japan, especially the abandoned houses, are full of treasures. Now,
Yeah.
we've mentioned Benton Homestead in Omishima. They are often reselling the antiques they find as well. But look at these beautiful
Mm.
old lacquer dishes, geta sandals, kokeshi dolls. So Mikan bags, she's also reselling those, and
Yeah.
it's a great way to fund her business, but also beautiful products which are hard to find, and
Yeah.
continuing the use of these great
Exactly.
materials, right?
Yeah. They're good quality. They're well made, and they'll go on for years. So it's nice to see them being given that chance.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And another one to shout out to,
Yes.
Biku Designs. Victoria, she does a great job also reusing old materials, making fresh, modern jewelry designs.
Yeah.
So I'll put all those links below. You also, Tova, you had a responsible maruche to introduce.
Yeah, so this is coming up for anyone based in Tokyo, as you can see on the 14th of December. And they'll be bringing together lots of different people. I would imagine Victoria Close might well be there, where you can buy gifts that are actually responsibly made and, sustainably sourced and so on. So really nice opportunity to support small local businesses, and also to just make better choices if you need to buy things.
Yes, sorry, a little bit slow there. I'm trying to find
The
the link.
links in, yeah.
Links for everybody. All right, I'll find
Yeah.
the link for that later. Now you were part of an interesting Tokyo forum. Is it for gender analysis research?
Right. So I wasn't participating. I was literally just watching for this one. But it was incredibly interesting. So it was 2 days hosted by the University of Tokyo and the Che Institute in from South Korea. Oh, we're looking at a different one now. Sorry. So this is Climate Fresk. This picture here. So sorry, I probably muddled up the pictures. So Climate Fresk was amazing. So this is run by so it's a French organization originally, although they've got Climate Fresk facilitators now all over the world. An organization called Ichigo Bloom, you can see their logo there. They have a lot of Climate Fresk facilitators here, and it's a really interactive kind of 3.5, 3 hour event where for people who know a lot or know a little, doesn't matter, about climate, and it's a very interactive way of helping people understand climate change, the sort of simplifying the science and making it accessible, and connecting it to human activities and the consequences of the sort of the climate issue. And so it's great. We were working in little groups, and I think over 130 people gathered for this one, which was more the most they'd ever had in one group in Japan. And we were working in small tables. We had a facilitator at each one. And they kind of walk you through this process of giving you a few cards each time with some information on them. And you have to discuss in your group how you think these things are connected. And then the facilitator will sort of correct you if necessary, or sort of add on to the ideas that are coming up. And it's really very, very powerful and very sort of well structured, so that people, some of the takeaways at the end, my group, most of them knew very, very little about climate science and were absolutely blown away about, okay, we didn't realize this was connected to that, and all of these things, and how human activities then connects to, you know, what we see and here sort of talked about, like sort of ice melt or biodiversity loss. They're like, okay, I didn't realize my actions were connected to that, and then how is that connected to the, you know, conflict and food shortages we see, political sort of instability, all of these things, like they're all connected, but people don't usually recognize how. So the Climate Fest does a really good job of helping people understand those connections. And then the idea at the end is everyone commits to an action and says, okay, well, now you understand these connections. What's a change you could make in your own lifestyle, in your own behaviors, that would start to sort of have a more positive impact? So really impressive tool. And they've got another one for biodiversity and another one for plastics as well.
That's so important. So on the cards that you're looking at here in the picture, what can you describe what kind of cards or what kind of information you're talking about?
So for example, you can see the one right in the center there, just under the lady's hand. There's a graph there showing, I think they had various different ones. I can't see exactly which one that is, but they might have showing you, for example, CO2 emissions over the sort of past decades and how that's ramped up so rapidly with the sort of expansion of the human population and industrialization and all these things. So you can see direct correlations there. It's got things around sort of looking at temperature change or the regularity and the severity of extreme weather incidents. And then it might have, at the top, it started with human activity. So it had things like agriculture, transportation, buildings and infrastructure, these kind of things. So it started off with things that everyone would recognize from their everyday life. Like, okay, we all eat, we all wear clothes, we all, you know, use some kind of transportation to move around. And then at the very end, they came up with, or the facilitator asked us, okay, so now you've sort of started with human activity and you've looked at all the science and how, you know, the warming of the oceans connects to, you know, driving the weather systems that produce the more extreme weather and so on. What do you think are the impacts on our society on this? And then sort of as we were brainstorming, she would sort of put down the cards whenever we sort of got a particular issue. And we looked at things like conflict, for example, and how, and migration and the you know, climate refugees, for example, and the impact that this sort of the things that we're seeing, whether that's the weather, whether that's sort of crop failure and things like this, how that's actually impacting people's everyday lives. That was such a powerful insight, I think, for a lot of the people who hadn't realized those connections before.
And that's so important, isn't it? And then you might also have positive effects, like, oh, the number of respiratory illnesses is going down. Oh, why would that be? It might be connected to the increase in electric cars, for example, and no emission kind of vehicles.
Exactly.
Also like positive, but also negative, and looking at how structural change or strategies might be working.
There's an idea.
Now you've got another event coming up, BCCJ. Tell us about this.
So this is next week on the 5th of December in the evening. So if you're in Tokyo, do come and join us for this. So this, we're collaborating with an organization called 2X Global, and that's a member-based organization originating in the Netherlands, I believe. And the idea is that it sets guidelines and a kind of how-to guide for looking at investments or evaluating investments with a sort of gender lens, if you like, for looking at them. So when companies or individual investors, it doesn't matter, whether it's a big institution or a very, startup impact fund, for example, they can look at what they're considering investing in and going, how is this going to impact women? Is it supporting? Is it helping to overcome sort of gender inequality, or is it going to be exacerbating it? So, for example, they talked about some in a prep call a couple of days ago. One lady, Mari Kogiso, who SDG Impact Fund, was talking about sort of really understanding, like, when you're looking at a startup funding, like, are they building equality into their culture from the beginning? Are they, is it an all-male organization that you're looking at? Have they even considered that? And actually this topic came up at Tokyo Forum as well, about the fact that a lot of scientific research is very underfunded from a gender perspective, and they don't do gender sort of analysis on results very often. So we don't understand, does this impact men and women in the same way? And often most of the sort of research participants will be males. So you're not understanding how might this be different, and companies funding that might not even think to ask those questions unless they have some guidelines. So that's what 2X Global does. And the lineup of panelists is, they're going to be bringing very, very different perspectives. So Tatiana Gerling is based in The Hague, the Netherlands. So she's the 2X Global representative. And I think you know who that one is, so we'll keep going down. And then Mari Kogiso, I just mentioned, so she's got an amazing background. Her current role is as co-CEO of SDG Impact, so she's looking at it from sort of funding startup perspective. Alexis Rocamora is he's the sustainability sort of finance lead for this whole APAC region for LSEG, the London Stock Exchange. And then Aya Tsumura is wonderful person, absolute force of nature. So she's executive officer at SMBC Trust Bank, but she also heads up the executive network for the JWIN, the Japan Women's Innovation Network. So really looking at systemic changes that are needed in organizations. So she'll be bringing that sort of organizational perspective to it. So it should be a really good discussion. I'm really looking forward to it. So if you're in Tokyo, come and join us.
Yes, sounds great. I wish I was closer always when so much is
That's a trip to Tokyo.
Right? Yeah, would love to. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all the amazing farmers in Japan. So here's a screenshot from when I talked to them on my 500th show. So I'm writing an article right now talking about CSAs, community-supported agriculture. I'll put the link below when it's done today on Medium. But linking to farmers in Japan while we're having Thanksgiving for Americans or Canadians this month, while we're thinking about our food sources and still keeping in mind the number of farmers in Japan, whether they're organic or otherwise, is seriously dropping. Every year. So doing a CSA, which basically means you have a subscription box, you're getting a monthly seasonal fresh box, or a lot of these also you can just shop when you want and get what you want. That's also available. But having access to our local farmers, not just what the supermarket chooses to have, is an important part of living sustainably, right? And supporting people who are regenerating nature, but also just simply growing food that we need to eat every day, right?
Yes, exactly. And I really like the idea that, you know, with all of those people you're talking to, that the proceeds go directly to them, right? If they're going through the supermarkets put massive pressure on farmers for you know, to bring the prices down. They're very picky about what they will take or not take. You know, does it look right? Does it have any blemishes on the skin, which really doesn't matter. So I love the fact that the ones that you're talking about there, and these sort of CSA sort of schemes, that you're paying them for the work they do and supporting them to continue doing that work. So that's super important.
And all the ones featured in the talk, they all are community builders. They're in rural areas, taking over abandoned houses, keeping the neighborhoods alive,
Yeah.
working with other
Mhm.
locals. Nagano Naturally, Heather, she's selling the seconds of
Mhm.
her neighbor's farm that they are rejected from supermarkets.
Yeah.
She'll sell the apples that they can't sell, which are amazing and
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful tasting. They might look a little ugly, they might have a spot or something, but absolutely fantastic to support and good, great product for you. It's a
Mm.
little bit cheaper. So, all of these people are really community builders, educators. They do workshops, and also farming. So it's not
Yes.
just growing food too.
Mm-mm. No, there's a lot more to it. Mm.
Well, that is our 30 minutes. Thank you so much, Tova. Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to try to get together again beginning of December, give you more insights on great things to buy for the holidays. So join us again next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Yeah, the bomb that'll blow up everything I got going.